Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon. We have a lot lined up for you today, so let's first take a quick glimpse at today's highlights. Korea's industrial output expands at the fastest pace in 3 months in September, thanks to strong demand for semiconductors and automobiles. China's 5-year plan to chart economic reforms and growth is put under the microscope, while Deutsche Bank is set to shed tens of thousands of jobs. We'll look at some of the top global business news making headlines this week. But first, trade ministers from Korea, China, and Japan held talks in Seoul for the first time in roughly 3.5 years in hopes of spurring trade and discovering a new direction for economic cooperation. Korea's Minister of Trade, Industry, and Energy, Yoon Sang-jik, met with his Japanese counterpart, Moto Hayashi, and Chinese counterpart, Chung Shan. They discussed ways to speed up negotiations on the Trilateral Free Trade Deal and Mega Trade Pact RCEP, along with measures to accelerate three-way trade and investment. This meeting comes ahead of a trilateral summit meeting in Korea on Sunday. Korea's industrial output picked up last month, raising hope that the economy is on the recovery track. However, local manufacturers are unconvinced by these numbers as they remain pessimistic about domestic business conditions. Our Shin Se-min reports.
Korea's total industrial output spiked in September, expanding 2.4%, the largest growth in over 4 years. It's a gradual pickup from the MERS-hit economy as dampened domestic consumption has started to recover. Statistics Korea said Friday that the strong service sector, a major driver of the economy, grew 1.2% from the month before, moving up over 3.5% compared to the same period last year. Increased output in the retail sector, boosted by the Chuseok holiday in September, as well as a cut in consumption tax, contributed to the monthly gain. Production in the mining, manufacturing, gas, and electricity industries grew nearly 2% on month, a huge leap from the mere 0.2% gain in August, as demand for semiconductors and automobiles increased. But despite this positive data, the Bank of Korea's monthly manufacturing sentiment survey showed little change among businesses, with the majority remaining pessimistic about conditions in November. The central bank said its business survey index for October rose to 71, up 3 points compared to the previous month, while its forecast for November stands at 70. The reading is still below the 100 mark, indicating that pessimists outnumber optimists. The Bank of Korea attributed the gloomy outlook to continued uncertainty about economic conditions weighing on the country's manufacturers. Experts say, however, that as there is no sign that global demand will pick up anytime soon, it's difficult to predict when the country's exports will take a turn for the better, further clouding prospects for local businesses. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
Meanwhile, Samsung Group has decided to sell all of its remaining chemical units to Lotte Group on Friday for a sum of $2.6 billion. The two parties held respective board of directors meetings on Friday and agreed that Lotte Chemical will buy 90% of Samsung SDI's chemical business, acquire a 31% stake in Samsung Phyton Chemicals, and 49% in Samsung BP Chemicals. The deal is part of Samsung's latest reshuffle in business units as it moves to streamline non-core assets after selling 4 of its chemical and defense arms to Hanwha Group last November. Volkswagen has issued recall notices for vehicles with Euro 5 compliant engines sold right here in Korea. According to industry sources, Audi Volkswagen Korea has been sending an official apology and recall notification letters to the owners of affected vehicles since last week. The Korean arm of the German carmaker is expected to recall over 125,000 units of 28 Volkswagen and Audi models fitted with EA189 engines. Meanwhile, owners of Euro 5 vehicles with EA288 engines were notified that their vehicles do not contain the cheating software and are not subject to recall. Although an exact date has yet to be finalized, Volkswagen is expected to start recalling affected vehicles starting January. Traditional Korean ramen has always been one of the most beloved foods here in Korea, enjoyed by people of all ages as a quick meal on the go or as a midnight snack. But challenging the dominance of the conventional soup-based noodles is a new type of ramen that has been pleasing people's palates. Our Lee Ju-young tells us more.
When Kim Sung-un is cooking in the kitchen, he says his go-to food for his son is instant noodles mixed with black bean sauce called 짜장라면.
We eat more jjajangramyeon these days, since there are more options to choose from, and my son prefers them over instant noodles with soup.
This quick-to-fix dish highlights a boom seen in non-soup ramen. A newly rolled-out jjajangramyeon called jawang chalked up roughly $9 million in May, only about a month after its launch. It's one of the many new products in the market, and its growing popularity is partially responsible for the steady decline in market share of soup ramen. These sauce-based noodles now make up roughly 27% of the overall instant noodle market as of this year. The trend is more evident at E-Mart, one of Korea's biggest supermarkets. Overall ramen sales shot up by 7% in the second quarter of this year, and the surge is largely attributed to the explosive popularity of jjajangramyeon products. Experts say although these noodles are not new, recent new releases of premium jjajang products which come with better quality sauce and flavored oil have stirred up a new appetite for the savory noodles. This is as a number of popular food shows have helped promote instant noodles as a proper meal as opposed to an easy fix. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
Amid sluggish exports, overseas sales of Korean cosmetics rose over 70% this year through July, posting a record trade surplus in the first half of the year. So what's the secret behind this global success? Our Park Se-young might have the answer.
It's common to see Chinese tourists lugging bags of Korean cosmetics around Seoul's popular shopping district, Myeongdong. Word of mouth has helped spread the gospel about Korea's beauty products, which now make it to tourists' must-buy list.
Quality comes first for beauty products which are applied to the face, which is why I came to buy Korean cosmetics.
Other than the most traditional source of success, good reviews, the engines behind Korea's global cosmetics growth are new ideas and technology. With this product, all you need to do is pat the puff against your face because 800,000 tiny holes in the special urethane sponge hold the makeup in liquid form. The idea for the product, which sold over 5 million units in China and Southeast Asia, came from ink stamp machines which do not require ink application. These skincare products contain snail slime. Researchers found that snail mucin supports cell regeneration, leading them to come up with an optimum ratio of the new ingredient.
We're trying to develop products which reflect the demands of global consumers, such as a desired skin appearance, from larger markets like China and the US.
The global love for Korean cosmetics is proven through trade statistics. Between January and July this year, China imported Korean beauty products worth more than $370 million, up over 250% for the same period last year. According to experts, this popularity is expected to last as Korean cosmetics makers continue to meet the various demands of diverse consumers. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
It's Friday, and you know what that means. It's time to look through some global business stories that made headlines this week with our Eunice Kim, who's in the studio for us today. Hello, Eunice.
Hi, June.
All right, so many people have been watching with great interest as Chinese leadership got together this week to discuss where their economy is headed for the next 5 years.
That's right. From an export-driven to a consumption-driven economy is what the government has been saying it is aiming for, and this 5-year plan is the 13th of its kind, which will take effect from next year, 2016 through 2020. It is being seen as President Xi Jinping's best opportunity to enact the reforms he's had his eyes on before he retires by 2022. Take a look.
35 years after its market was opened to the world, China's Communist Party produced a communiqué that outlined where the globe's second largest economy would head next. And while details of the closed-door four-day plenum are still forthcoming, on Friday, China's state Xinhua news agency noted 5 major points from the plan. Number 1, China will aim to achieve, quote, medium-high economic growth in the next 5 years, which many economists translate to mean keeping at least a 6.5% annual growth rate. Reports say China's Premier Li Keqiang himself floated the 6.5% figure in a speech at the China Central Committee meeting. Growth that will be needed to double China's 2010 GDP and per capita income by 2020, in time for the 100th anniversary of the party's founding. And the headline overnight: China officially abolished its long controversial one-child policy, replacing it with a two-child policy, easing its tight grip on family planning that sent related Chinese stocks like dairy and toys soaring.
I think this policy of family planning easing is kind of an improvement in human rights. I think how many babies a family should have depends on the personal rights of citizens.
If the one-child policy was launched in the late 70s to control a booming population, China is now looking to increase its labor supply as the economy looks inward for growth and as its aging population is quickly outpacing the rest amid an economic slowdown. To spur its economy and post in the world, the party said China will draw more foreign investors through transparency and a list that states sectors and businesses considered off-limits. Further, the Chinese government will look for innovation to spur growth that will include a thriving technology sector, with developments in big data and the sharing economy. Finally, it will continue to root out forces deemed corrupt within the system, as the decision-making body revoked party memberships of 10 former officials accused of graft.
Wow, there's a lot there. And this seems to be quite a departure from its earlier or previous such communiques where it actually sets specific production targets for things like steel and grain.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They have zoomed out quite a bit, focusing more on medium-term goals, such as promoting a more advanced industrial sector to achieve President Xi Jinping's what it's called new normal of a slower but a sustained and shared growth. Now, you'll remember, China only achieved a 6.9% growth in the third quarter, which was the worst it's seen since the global financial crisis, but which Beijing said it was not swayed by. And a fuller picture of Beijing's goals, including perhaps an official revised growth target from its current 7%, is expected to come in the weeks through March, when China's People's Congress is set to officially approve that communique. But certainly, this document shows a China that desires to modernize and take its place on the global stage.
All right, let's talk a bit about China scrapping its one-child policy. Does this immediately take effect?
No, it does not. As far as we know, everything has to be formalized once again by the Chinese central government. But there is already speculation on whether it will be effective in achieving its intended effect of raising birth rates. Now, Beijing had loosened its decades-long one-child policy a couple years ago, back in 2013. But when it fell far short of its goal of 1 million new babies, it seems that that may have contributed to this new revised two-child policy. Whether this will also mean lessening mandatory pregnancy tests and forced abortions, some of the things that have been criticized, only time will tell.
All right, we'll leave that there and turn our eyes to the world's third largest economy. Around lunchtime today, Japan's central bank announced its policy decision for this month, and it decided to keep its stimulus program as it is, where it is right now.
You're absolutely right. And there had been growing speculation that the Bank of Japan may actually expand its monetary easing program, especially as it had not been very productive in terms of achieving its 2% inflation target. Well, Japan's central bank decided against that speculation, its board voting 8-1 to keep its record asset purchasing program at 80 trillion yen every year. That is about $660 billion US dollars. The move follows BOJ Governor Haruhiko Kuroda's statement that trend inflation, which excludes energy and fresh food prices, was in fact on its way to the 2% target that could be hit next year. No bonuses, no shareholder payments, and tens of thousands of jobs to be wiped out. That was the announcement from John Cryan, Deutsche Bank's new CEO, who says he'll get done what his predecessors were unable to do: cut costs and clear out structural issues to bring in shareholder returns. In fact, 1 week ago, the German bank went through a major management-level overhaul, merged its corporate finance and global transaction units, and dropped 10 of 16 management committees while giving more voice to regulatory personnel. It unveiled a $6.6 billion loss in the third quarter, $1.3 billion of which were for litigation costs. 9,000 full-time jobs at Deutsche Bank and 6,000 consultant positions will be cut through 2018 as the lender spins off its retail unit Postbank and exits 10 countries, most of them in South America.
Wow, so that's a total of like 15,000 jobs just being wiped out.
Or more. Estimates go up as 35,000. So
wow.
Definitely shrinking.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see if this will actually help boost capital.
Yes,
all right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Eunice.
You bet.
And that wraps it up for today and this week. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll be back next week with more business news that matters to you. Have a great weekend, everyone.